So I'm doing a quick couple of circuits of my local park in the Neo Vista, Mizuno's long run versatile training shoe. I think they possibly brought it out as a kind of super blast competitor. It's super critical EVA, so it's not PEVA, but the way they've designed this shoe with the geometry and also the plate, the nylon plate, it kind of just works. I don't think it is necessarily the best foam ever, although it is quite nice and soft and bouncy. You know, if you are comparing it with the Light Strike Pro or the FF Turbo that's in the Super Blast, and also the Prime X Strung, you know, I don't think it competes with those foams. But what they have done is spent a lot of time thinking about the dynamics of the shoe and the design, and they've come up with a really nice, thoughtful design, I think, with this shoe. It's very different to other shoes out there on the market, and I'll explain what I mean. So I think, again, they've got a nice rocker in this shoe, nowhere near as extreme as their other shoes like the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro, but it's still there and you can feel it. And if you land in the midfoot or forefoot area, you get that little throw forward because of the geometry of the shoe. It kind of flows, makes you flow, which is kind of nice when you're running. Nothing spectacular like the Prime X, but a bit more noticeable than, say, the Super Blast. Somewhere in between the two shoes. And then they've got this nylon plate, which, because it's quite a high stack shoe, I think it acts as a stability agent more than anything. And the shoe is really stable. You know, I've had no issues whatsoever. You've got this large base to land on, and you've got this huge cutout, which you think would make it less stable, but it kind of like acts almost like a little suction agent. As your foot lands, it kind of splays, and you get that tiny little suction effect on the floor. It's hard to notice, but it does. You are getting that, and gives it a nice kind of spring of the foam. So again, well designed. I mean, you look at it, you think, crikey, that's going to catch a lot of rocks, but it actually doesn't do. I think it's actually too big to catch most of the small kind of gravel and stones that you get. So yeah, so well thought out, I think. Like I say, I don't think the nylon plate gives you much propulsion. I think it's there more as a stability agent, and it works as that. It's definitely a shoe you can pick up the pace in, but you know, compared to, say, the Prime X Strung 2, it's doesn't have the same kind of energy return, let's say. You know, it's similar to Super Blast. I think Super Blast may be slightly quicker, and just because of that FF Turbo foam, but they're comparable. I think this is a much better shoe though at slower paces than either of those shoes. So there's a good question for you. If you are somebody who actually cares more about just doing the distance, and you're not you're not looking for a shoe to push your pace, this actually has some advantages over those two shoes. You know, it's a really comfortable, protected, stable. It's, I think, more as stable as the Super Blast and definitely more stable than the Prime X. So some issues with the shoe, some dislikes. Oh, before we go on to that, the upper's really nice, I find anyway. There's a lot of talk about maybe the upper, this booty style knit upper, wouldn't give you enough support structure. I think it gives great support and structure, to be honest. It acts really well, and the best thing I can say is it feels like you haven't got an upper. You can't feel the upper, you know, it's like it's not there. And that's the best thing I can say about an upper. You know, if the upper's not getting in the way, it's doing its job for me. I think at this time of year as well, it's quite a warm upper, so that could be a negative in the summer. UK, I'm not so sure. But if you're in a hot country, I feel like it could get quite warm. It's a freezing day here, and it's keeping my feet warm, which I noticed wasn't the case with the Prime X, with all those perforations in the strung material. So yeah, so this is nice warm upper, good for this time of year. Where it's not good this time of year, and I'll come to my negatives now, is it's not the grippiest, and this ground I'm running on now is quite frosty, and I can feel a little bit of slippage, particularly as I go over the leaves. So that's one area that Mizuno can improve on with this shoe. They've made a nice soft rubber outsole, but what comes with that is a less grippy outsole, and that's potentially a problem, right, for our winters. So that's one area. The other area, I think, where it will not match the other shoes is durability. Actually, going back to the outsole, it's better than the Super Blast, the original. I'm not sure about the second, but it's definitely better than the original. So somewhere again in between, nowhere near as good as the Adidas Continental rubber outsole. And then yeah, going back to durability, I think I've done about 150, 180 miles in this, and it's starting to lose its tread. I mean, everything else is intact, but I feel like if you're somebody who's used to the Super Blast and you're thinking of switching to Neo Vista, you're going to need to bear that in mind. I don't think it's as durable. That said, it's look at that sky up there, amazing, isn't it? Sort of like, it's not doing it justice, this camera, but anyway. Where was I? Yeah, but that said, is £159 as opposed to £200, which is the Super Blast, and £250, which is a Prime X strung. So already you can see that you're going to make a bit of a saving on both, a lot of a saving on the Prime X strung. So, you know, potentially you could buy multiple pairs of this shoe, and then you'd have something that could be comparable with the Super Blast at least. I think the Super Blast is in a category of its own for durability, and nothing much comes close to it compared to, I mean, like everything else. You know, once you start getting past the 300-mile mark, you start to see degradation even before that. The Super Blast feels the same, you know, even at 400, 500 miles. So it's just an incredible shoe like that. So I can see why people wouldn't want to switch to it. I think this shoe is going to give you that 300, 350 miles no problem. And then around 350, I imagine, you might start to see the foam bottoming out and the outsole rubber wearing thin, and you'd be looking to replace it. So I think they're two what I would call the negatives of this shoe. But there aren't really anything else I can think of that I'd call a negative. Such a great shoe. Where it beats the Super Blast hands down is it's a more fun shoe to run in. You know, softer, bouncier, just more fun. Fun in a different way to the Prime X. That's like I said before, that's like your wild stallion fun. This is more like your playful horse fun. You don't need to tame this. You know, it's fine. You know, straight away, you get running with this and you feel in control. You've got some toe spring here. You can use your toes a little bit, yeah? That's what I mean. To push off on. Whereas with the Prime X Strung 2, that's really so rigid. The shoe's in control. Your toes do very little. So those with you know, muscular issues are in their toes, maybe arthritis or whatever, actually the Prime X Strung might work for you in that respect, because it's not, you know, you're not having to do any work with your toes, whereas this you do. I quite like running in shoes where you have to do, you know, you use your toes and you build strength in those toes. I think it's important for your general everyday life. And so sometimes running in these extreme carbon plated shoes, which are so rigid, you don't exercise those areas, and that can lead to problems. That's what they say. It's good to run in a variety of shoes, so that you do use different muscles, whether that be foot, toe, calf, glutes, quads, whatever. Each shoe is different. Each shoe requires different usage of your muscles. So the more of a variety of shoe you run in, the more those muscles, in a general sense, will get a workout, which I think is obviously a good thing. If you want to learn more about that kind of thing, listen to Doctors of Running. They specialise in that area. They're a good read, and thoroughly nice people by the sounds of it. Anyway, that's all I want to say. I'll leave you for now, listen to a bit of music, and I'll do a final summary a bit later on. See you later in this frosty but beautiful Wednesday morning. Okay then, so as promised, a final summary of this shoe and how I think it compares. So I think this is one of the softer, most fun, stable, versatile marathon training shoes out there. What it lacks in outsole grip and durability, it gains in all those things I mentioned. Plus, Mizuno has priced this at very reasonable £159, which, if you compare that with a lot of shoes, that's actually reasonable. Mizuno have a good history of marking down their products as well, so at some point you'll get this very cheap, probably when the new version comes out. It's a nice ride, nice and bouncy and soft, without being uncontrollable like the Prime X can be at times. It's definitely a rival to both that shoe and the Super Blast. I feel like it sits at one end of the spectrum of the three shoes. It's a shoe that you can go slower in, and it's comfortable with that. It's not as fast as those shoes, definitely nowhere near as propulsors of the Prime X, but it's more stable, similar to the Super Blast. It's a reasonable weight, around 270 grams. So all in all, I still would go with the Prime X slightly, but it's a close call, and those that value slower running more than going quickly would probably choose differently. Anyway, every step counts.